Heroes 2 is a game with 5 distinct factions, and each allows you to implement a variety of strategies and build orders. Today I'd like to show you my strategy for the Americans, which you can take into most 4v4 or 3v3 games. I'm Greyshot151. I have a lot of time in Company of Heroes 2, and I'm no meta player or a competitive player, but I am a very good player. With experience under my belt, I thought to reveal to you all my recommendations on how to play the USF faction in Company of Heroes 2. Now, I'll be focusing on a broad build order, and I won't be referencing or making note of specific commanders or abilities. With all that being said, let's begin. Now, there are 3 main things you want to think of before you choose any units in a multiplayer game. First up, what are the enemy factions? OKW is going to be infantry based, pushing with their Sturms and their Volt Grenadiers to knock you out and throw you out of the fuel and or star. Meanwhile, the Vermont is going to be using MGs against you. So if you have a build order that focuses on infantry, running into a whole bunch of MGs is going to be a major problem. The second thing to think of is your ally. Now, in a 3v3 and 4v4 situation, you really have one ally that is going to be supplementing your attack. It is not a lone wolf type of game. So whatever you do, you're going to be amplifying the strengths and or weaknesses of your ally. So are they Soviets? Are they American? Are they British? Each of those comes with their own strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to be implementing their own strategies in regard to what you're doing. So if they're the Soviets, are they going to be sending a lot of infantry like the Americans can do with their riflemen? In which case, maybe you want to build an ambulance or prioritize it first. On the flip side, if you're going to be having, let's say, a British player and they're going to be using MGs and they don't have a mortar or, support equipment of their own to put down smoke or put a barrage down, making a mortar will be a great asset in maybe covering enemy MGs or maybe hitting suppressed OKW infantry. The last thing to think about is what I've been kind of referencing already, which is strategy. What are you going to do and what is the enemy going to do? The OKW strategy is going to be pushing infantry. What is the best way to counter that? Having an ambulance up at the front, allowing your infantry to heal because you will be outnumbered. But having an ambulance on the front will allow you to wear down the enemy, stop their attack, and eventually beat them back. And keep in mind, the OKW has to run all the way back to base. The same can be said for the Wehrmacht. So, if you are able to outlast the assault, that is a great asset. Meanwhile, the main primary attack of the Wehrmacht is to lock down the point with an MG, wait for you to attack, or maybe push with their own MG, suppress your units, and wipe the floor with them with their Pioneers or their Grenadiers. Don't allow this to happen. Bring a mortar, smoke the MG, and knock out the infantry, because your infantry, your riflemen, your rear echelon will beat their infantry in a 1v1 if they are not suppressed. Do not try to barrage. A barrage can eventually kill a mortar, but you need an immediate way to stop the suppression. So smoking the MG will give you the immediate benefit and allow you to beat their infantry in the engagement and push them off the point. The reason I mention all of this is because a build order is a good thing to have, but you have to be flexible. Going with one build order can lead to your own destruction if the enemy does something different. So with all that said, let's get to the actual build order I would recommend against the Wehrmacht and the OKW, and what this build order is essentially meant to do. So let's start with the OKW. The build order for that in which I would recommend is Rifleman to start off with. It's going to be your core infantry unit. It's the best thing you can do. Next unit is going to be a Rifleman again. You want to get this infantry up to the front line in a group as soon as possible. Now when I say front line, I don't mean directly engaging the enemy. You want to group up your forces. Allow the OKW to take a little territory if you can assemble all your forces at one place, because when the next unit, the ambulance, arrives, you can use that to reinforce your infantry and ensure that even when they attack, you have enough forces there to defend it. My next recommendation would have to be the captain. Its ability to act just like your rifleman and be a frontline unit is a great necessity in this type of build, and the things that it unlocks are exactly what you're looking for. The next item you would want is the anti-tank gun, which will be perfect against half-tracks, or Luxes, or maybe even a Panzer IV. The other thing that it's good for is once you get the captain upgrade, unlocking the howitzer, which is just probably the best support gun in the game next to the OKW support gun. And then the next thing after that you want is the major. By now, I assume you've taken at least one fuel. You should have enough fuel by this point to get the major. And then as soon as you have this major locked down, the next major thing you're saving up for is the Jackson. I recommend and stress the Jackson over, let's say, a Sherman, is because the Jackson is your pinnacle anti-tank ability. While the anti-tank gun is good, it's more static. And in cases where you want a lot of mobility, and especially helping your allies in a 4v4 or 3v3, the Jackson is a great unit, and it's personally my favorite destroyer. Now, between these, you can also slot in the upgrade for grenades, as well as the bar upgrade. But keep in mind, if your riflemen are going to be at the front for most of this engagement, I would only recommend you actually upgrading when your riflemen have been defeated. Or when your teammate can cover your rifleman, going back to base, grabbing those bars, and then heading back to the front to engage. So for this build, you should have 2 riflemen, 1 captain, and a rear echelon to squeeze in as your main frontline force. Now this will not be as effective as, let's say, 4 riflemen fully upgraded with bars, but what you will do is save up on manpower and other resources. That way you can better distribute it to other assets that you might need, like an anti-air gun or a calliope, maybe some caches. It'll allow you to move manpower to places that you'll need and not be entirely focused on a frontline force that could be obliterated in the blink of an eye. Now onto the Vermont. You want to start off with a rifleman unit, just like you did with the OKW, but afterward you then want to get a mortar. The mortar, like I mentioned previously, will be an essential asset in engaging the Vermont by throwing down both the barrage and, more importantly, smoke to allow your infantry some cover and to engage their infantry without being suppressed. After that next mortar, you want the rifleman, and then I would highly recommend either the ambulance or the captain. Again, I'm stressing this because it is a Vermont, so you have less urgency for that ambulance. It's still a great unit, it's still key, and it's still something you can slot in over, let's say, the captain if your ally has gone really heavy into infantry. But again, eventually you want to get either the captain or an ambulance, either or, but eventually you want to get both. Then you essentially want to go for the anti-tank gun, and again, the captain upgrade, howitzer, major, Jackson. So, as I mentioned overall with these 2 build orders, your main focus is less infantry, more pressure, and more of an ability to slot in manpower in areas that you might need. Again, there's a lot of manpower that you'll have access to using this build, and that'll allow you to build caches. That can allow you to maybe slot in another unit if need be and have that flexibility. That is something I've really appreciated with the American, is the flexibility of what you can do. In any case, those are my recommendations on the American faction and what I like to do with the faction. It might be different from yours, but give it a try. Maybe you'll end up liking this path. In any case, this is Greyshot151. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys, before you go, let me give a special shout out to Aphyria, Folkvard, Joey G240, Balam, Ace, Tony B, Ion, Little Koosh, Samuel McKinney, Seth Coopers, and Jacob Oswald. Thank you guys so much for your awesome support and generosity. If you guys want additional content, check out the links above. Otherwise, I'll see all of you next time.